The ship backlog continues, as it always does. Colonial Movers, great folks. They track the backlog pretty closely and post about it pretty regularly. Let's see when their last post was, though. 7 days ago. Good timing. Here is the ship backlog as of 4.1 tracked from 2016 to 2025. Red ships are unavailable. Black ships are available. Percentage of ships currently flyable is 79%. So there are a total of 211. 167 of them are currently accessible to players. That is 89 out of 119 ships in total, of specific unique models. 77 out of 91 variants. They're doing better, and I think one of the big things that they're doing better at is releasing straight to flyable ships rather than concepts, which just makes sense over time. Obviously, it's easier to find concept artists earlier and be able to make more concepts. It took them a long time to be able to get the ship pipeline into a good place where they could reliably create and deliver models. For such a long time, I would say from the 2016 to 2020 era, maybe the 2021 time period, a lot of this was concept art. Now, a lot of which we have in our hands, but their ship team was in the just a couple dozen, I think, not really that many. And really, they didn't have gameplay to launch their ships with. They didn't have prescribed ways of making that gameplay. It's their teams were not where they are now. We can watch them develop a feature over the course of a year or two and see the people talk about it on Star Citizen Live and then watch it get put into PTU. Back then, it would be the engineer would talk about it on Around the Verse, and then it would disappear for a couple years. Then it'd show up on a monthly report, and then it'd disappear for a couple years, and then maybe something else would be said about it. But they definitely didn't have a good flow of making the features that would support these kinds of ships back then. So I think a lot of them just released and then were just sitting around waiting. Now they seem like they focus a lot more on releasing stuff and making stuff based on an actual schedule. Not a schedule we like by any means, but a schedule they can somewhat keep. And let's be honest, it's probably the only one that CIG really truly 100% sticks to. But they do. No, they don't. 85% of the time. We were just talking about the Legionnaire. But they've been doing better at ships. Now, they still release ships not fully complete. Throw that caveat in there. They still release ships with broken gameplay support. And they still release concepts occasionally. So it's not all sunshine and dandelions and frogs that don't shut up at night. But it's better. We'll give it that. Finish the concepts, though? No, the problem with finishing... The problem with releasing the ships that are listed here, I would say almost all of these, except for the Hull series, the G12. I think besides that, any of these ships getting released, okay, and the Javelin and the Idris, any of these other ships getting released would end up with just a huge rework later on. Or it would end up with them forcing some kind of gameplay to fit the ship and ruin the gameplay itself. You know for a fact if they released the Vulcan before they figured out drones, we'd have a rework of the Vulcan later on. Same can probably be said about the Endeavor, which is a massive modular ship. The Genesis Starliner is going to have passenger transport. They don't have passenger transport working. We've talked about that before, but what are you going to do? The Crucible, probably going to end up getting drones. I highly doubt that one would not see a rework if it released now. Banner Merchantmen, same thing as the Kraken Privateer. We don't have player shops, so they don't know how the ingress and egress of NPCs and players will work to come and shop on your ship. So they got to wait for that one. The Expanse needs to do refining. We don't have refining. How big are the refiners going to be? How does the refining intake get made if now they're redesigning some of the mining stuff for the golem? Well, the what is it? The other freaking mining ship. Prospector. The Prospector also looks different. So like, you could just pick them apart. Kraken needs to carry ships. Ranger needs two-wheeled physics. Raylan needs specific cargo pods. The Odyssey needs deep space scanning. And whatever is going to come with that, probably drones. I think it also has refining. Liberator's got to carry vehicles just like the Kraken. Legionnaire needs its hacking and boarding. Galaxy needs its modularity. We don't even... UTV is definitely one that we would want. I don't know what's going on with that one. The Arastra needs its engineering, I would imagine. That one mainly... Does the Arastra have refining? That might be refining that holds that back. That's also a new concept, though. I think they're going to let that one sit for a little bit. Paladin is a combat ship. That's why we're seeing it come into the game right now, because it's not going to get held back like that. Ironclad is a cargo hauling ship. That's why we're seeing it being worked on. And yeah, that's most of the list. The Orion is in need of large-scale mining. Erastra has refining. So, as far as the backlog goes, oh, of course, the Apollo. How could I forget? We just talked about that. They are working on the Apollo, so that's why this is like the one ship. This is the main confusing point of CIG's current production. They're not talking about medical, but they are working on the Apollo. All of these other ships we just looked at, they're not working on because they have gameplay that holds them back. So the story of the Apollo is going to be a real interesting one later this year. They have more little slides here, Colonial Movers. They have an Oregon game, by the way, if you want to join them. This just kind of breaks down a little bit more how the ships are being delivered and which ones they still need to do. This one, I think, is a pretty good representation. It shows how much it's just capital ships that are really holding them back. The large ships are at 57%, but everything else, 100% on snubs, 98% on small ships, and 81% on medium ships is actually a pretty decent amount of ships delivered for the majority of players. Most people aren't going to be using capital ships, so you know, they have work to do, but they're mainly on larger ships, which is good. Oh, this is interesting. It shows when ships were, I think, introduced, but this is a little difficult to say because sometimes ships, like, they get their names leaked out and then they end up getting officially reintroduced the next year, so it's a little awkward, but you can see there were 2017, 2018, 2019, a lot was going on. Yeah, not really much else to look at here. If you want to, though, I will leave the link down below for you if you want to check out the backlog.